Hi everyone, I'm Andy with an I, and I wanted to talk about how the movie Encanto has a song in it that completely changed the way that I view my disability. And I'm hoping that by the end of this video, if you have a disability as well, you will also have a huge oh my gosh moment. So while watching the movie, Isabella's character was a very complicated one for me to look at. And I was like, why is she so bitter and mean? And I didn't like it. But one of the main reasons I didn't like it is because of the fact that she reminded me of myself growing up. And it was scary, really scary. And I'll explain why. I wasn't always dealing with a disability. Growing up, I was very involved in theater, I was very involved in art classes, I was very involved in dancing. I was very involved in so much because of my mother. My mother was very involved with a lot of things. She's a choreographer, she was a teacher, she was a nurse and a flight attendant. Yes, all of these things. But her main career was nurse at night, flight attendant on weekends, teacher in the daytime. She also was my teacher for a while as well in my private school. And my mother was very intelligent. She still is really intelligent. I mean, she's a genius. I always wanted to be like her. I really looked up to my mom and I saw this perfectly proper woman always doing her best. She was raised in South Dakota on a Native American reservation. My mother is this beautiful indigenous Lakota woman, and she really tried her hardest to always do her best. She raised my sister, my brother, and me, and I was the baby. She raised me as a single mother, and she did her best that she could possibly do as a single mom. She would give up everything she could to make sure I was okay and healthy, made sure that I had food over her. My mother was the most generous woman you could ever think of. The only issue I had was the fact that because she was the oldest of many siblings, she also had this whole thing where she felt like she had to be perfect. And she instilled that into me. I was the baby, and I was the youngest one, and I spent the most time with her. And because of that, I really was molded to be this perfectly amazing little girl. She would tell everybody how great I was. She told other neighbors and family members and everybody, wow, my daughter Andy's so great. Look at her doing this. Look at her doing that. Look at her doing this. Wow, look at her in this picture. She's posed so nicely and proper. Wow, look how nicely she's drawn this picture. Wow, she colored in the lines. Oh, wow, she wrote this out so neatly. My mother always said these nice things about me, and I was very grateful. However, it really wasn't me. I felt like the person that she was showing everyone just wasn't me. I only colored in the lines because she made me. I couldn't color outside the lines or I had to do it again. I only wrote neatly because she made sure I wrote neatly by writing lines on paper to make sure everything was perfectly written across. And if it wasn't, I had to white it out. I can't imagine, I can't even count or remember how many bottles of whiteout I've gone through in this house. She really tried her hardest to make me into this perfect little girl, and she didn't know that it was affecting me in such a negative way because I never spoke up. So she never was malicious about it. She just was doing whatever she thought was right. I should have spoke up because if I did, my mother was a very open-minded person. She would have listened to me, but I didn't speak up. I just kept quiet about everything and I just kept trying to be this obedient little child who stood nicely next to my mom, stayed quiet next to my mom. My ADHD was like messing my head up as a child, but I did my best. Like, the crazy thing was, I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until a couple of years ago. So I never knew why I was the way I was as a kid, why my brain was always racing, why I kept interrupting, why my room was a mess, why everything just couldn't be a certain way. Like, it was a lot. But again, with all of that, again, I was not born disabled. I was dancing, running, singing, everything. I had the energy. I was this crazy energetic kid. I had so much energy. I couldn't even calm down. Like, I was very hyperactive. I was very excited for things when I was able to be excited about them. Unfortunately, because of the way I was, I remember in second grade, My mom had this adorable little dress for me where I had a really pretty veil, and it was for my communion at my Catholic school where she was teaching, and she was my teacher. And I looked so perfect in it. And a student would come up to me and was like, "You really must think you're a princess." And I'm just like, "I am." And honestly, that was bad. That's where it started. That's when this bitterness, meanness, I'm better than you attitude started with me. And I really wish I could go back in time and shake that little girl and be like, "Stop it." Because it was very toxic. It wasn't healthy. I was not nice. I was mean. I was pretty much Isabella. How Isabella just was mean to her sister, was mean and bitter because she wanted things a certain way, and if someone else had it differently or they didn't have to be as perfect, she wasn't nice to her about it. And I wasn't nice to those people that had it a lot easier than me, I believed. I wasn't. I believed that if I didn't color in the lines, I was doing something wrong. If I didn't write in straight lines, I was doing something wrong. If I wasn't looking a certain way and my clothing wasn't a certain way, I was doing something wrong. That it wasn't perfect enough. I needed to be perfect. I needed everything to be perfect. I felt like I had all of this, around me that I wanted to be as great as my mom was. Not realizing that perfection really doesn't exist as a human. I cannot be perfect as a human, and I really tried to be. I spent all my time doing exactly what Isabella did, growing rows and rows of roses, trying to make everything look good and be as great as it was from the outside, but inside there was just, as she said, so much hides behind my smile. There was all of this emotion I had where I felt like I needed to be perfect or else it wasn't good enough. I needed to be creative, but I needed to be limited with my creativity or else it was going to look bad. And that's how I felt I had to be, and it was really tough. Unfortunately, with everything I was doing, dancing, being in theater, doing this, doing that, like all of the activities I was in, when I became disabled, all of that was thrown out the window. There was no more writing in a straight line anymore. My motor skills stopped working the same way anymore. I have really terrible pain tremors now, and I cannot color in the lines. I cannot write straight anymore. I don't have an easy way of moving around anymore. So dancing is out of the question now. I'm unable to walk the same way anymore. Um, I can't do all the things that I used to be able to do, the things that I thought would make me perfect. I lost all of that. And I told myself, it's gone. What am I supposed to do? I felt completely useless. For so long, I was feeling useless. I felt like I couldn't do anything anymore because my disability stopped me. And I told myself, this is terrible. This is horrible. My depression took over. But as time went on, in the beginning, when my disability wasn't as bad, I became a life coach because I knew it was something I could do from home that I was good at doing. I was good at encouraging people to do things, and I didn't have to worry too much about it. Then I ended up getting into writing again. I used to write as a child. My mother encouraged me to write. She encouraged me to write, to draw, to do everything, as long as I did it a certain way though. But I wrote these stories, these like amazing stories, these books, and I published a few. And I'm not here to talk about my books or tell you to hire me as a life coach. I'm here to talk about the main thing is that my disability may have limited me from a lot of things, but it limited me from my limits, which is good. It took away those limits now. I felt limited. I couldn't do this or that. But now that I have time and I'm literally kind of stuck in bed almost 24/7 now because it's hard for me to get up and move around now. I now have time to do a lot more things that I didn't have the time to do before. I now am creating things. I opened my own Etsy stores. I started designing things that could just be a mess. I could be a mess. I could be wild with things now. I could create all sorts of designs on purses, on wallets, on blankets, on pillows. I started doing all these things and putting them on Etsy. And I was like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know I could be so creative. I didn't know I had this talent. I didn't know I had these skills. I started asking myself, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. And when did I start doing this? I actually started doing this after I watched Encanto. After I watched Isabella talk about the things that she struggled with. After I watched her talk about trying to be perfect, trying to be this amazingly perfect child. I got tired of growing rows and rows of roses. I got tired of trying to make things be symmetrical and perfect. I got happy when things were mine. I became much happier. I became much more open, much more, you know, honest with myself about things. In the past few years, I've struggled with my own body and I've struggled with fighting it as it betrayed me. And I was like, stupid body betraying me. But realizing I still have my mind, I still have thoughts that are my own. I have therapy that I go to, and I love my therapist. And honestly, like, he really helped me a lot with realizing, like, hey, stop looking at the stuff that you can't do anymore and start looking at what you can do. So I started asking myself, you know what? Well, I don't think I can do anything. I felt so useless. And now, honestly, after listening to the song What Else I Can Do 10 million times probably, I started realizing there's more things about me that I didn't know. I didn't know I had these skills. And that's when I started working on things. That's when I started really working on new talents. That's when I started doing more designs. That's when I started seeing, you know what else? I'm just going to push through. And I'm going to ask myself, just like Isabella asked, what else can I do? Having a disability doesn't stop you from doing things. It just makes you do things a different way. And I started saying, what else? What else? What else? What else? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I kept looking at this. And I'm not saying that Isabella has a disability, but I'm saying that being someone that was raised without a disability and ending up with one, not realizing, like, you know what, I thought I lost so much, but I gained a lot more. I gained so much more. I wanted to feel that shiver of something new just like she did. I was so sick of things being pretty and perfect. I wanted something true to myself. I wanted to be me. And I want all of you out there that are dealing with things, whether it's depression, anxiety, whether it's any kind of mental illness, especially if you are dealing with a disability, whether you were born with it or whether it's come onto your body later on in life. Like me, I'm 31 currently, and I never thought I would ever have a disability. I never thought this would be my life now. But honestly, oh well. Like, this was something that I needed to teach me new things, to teach me things I didn't know. And the fact that I have such really, really, really good friends right now that really encourage me and help me do everything. I don't know what I don't know what I'd do without them. I don't know what I would do. You guys are all wonderful. I love my friends. I love all of you. I love you all so freaking much. You guys have no idea how much you have encouraged me and helped me do so much. And it's like, to everyone on the outside, they've always seen me as a child. They're like, wow, like, just like Maribel says, you just seem like your life been a dream since the moment you opened your eyes. I really put on this face of everything's wonderful and fine. I could never show how I was feeling because I was too afraid to. I didn't have the courage. And now I'm asking myself, wow, how far do these roots go down? What else can I do? Like, this is awesome that I now can shine and rise, and all of my friends are reminding me how great this is and how proud they are of me. And now I'm proud of myself. Now I'm looking at myself and saying, wow, like, there's so many crazy stuff that is out there for me to do. So many things. And it's like, now I really focus on stuff now. I'm like, what can you do when you are deeply, madly, truly in the moment? Well, that's what I asked myself too. I'm just going to have to seize that moment and keep going, just like they said in the song. That song really just woke me up to things to make me, to make me think about my disability and how, you know, I'm actually a lot more able to do, I'm more able to do things than I ever believed I could do. I don't know. I'm just really glad I listened to it. And I really want all of you out there that have listened to this song to really think of the lyrics and think of how you can do so much more than what you've ever imagined. There are so many things inside of you. I never knew I was this creative. I never knew it. And you probably are wondering, wow, am I creative too? Well, you won't know until you start doing things, until you start trying. And honestly, if something doesn't work out, do something else. There are millions and millions of different activities and skills that we can all have in this world. So don't stop. Keep going. Stop growing rows and rows of roses. Stop trying to make things symmetrical and perfect and just do crazy fun stuff. Don't stop. Be yourself, be wild, be as free as you want. And ask yourself every single day, what else can I do? Because honestly, There's nothing you can't do. I love you all.